what is going to happen at the top of the NFL draft. We talked about the Mac Jones situation, Geoff Schwartz. It appears like he is going to go number 3, if you believe all the reports, to the Niners at 3. So it feels like picks 1, 2, and 3, everybody's got a clear understanding. The Falcons at pick 4 is another discussion we can have later on in the show. But the one that is, I think, maybe under the radar, not getting as much discussion, is what the Cincinnati Bengals could potentially do at number 5. Because, look, they've got their quarterback. Joe Burrow played well before the injury. Now the question is, how do you handle that? How do you address it? Do you go offensive line? There's going to be a stud, offensive weapon that's going to be available there, whether it's Pitts or Jamar Chase, whatever you're looking at for the Cincinnati Bengals. Here they are with an opportunity to upgrade their offensive line and upgrade around Joe Burrow.
Yeah, so let's assume number 4 is a quarterback. Whether the Falcons take it or someone else takes a quarterback at 4, they take Fields. So that means the Bengals are going to have to choose between Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, and Penei Sewell. In that situation, Kyle Pitts I think would be a good option. But I think he could be, again, tight end's that special. But let's talk about offensive line against wide receiver, because this is what the Bengal fans have been debating, assuming Kyle Pitts is taken 4. I think Atlanta actually, if they stay at 4, they draft Kyle Pitts. So that wouldn't even be a problem for the Bengals. If they move out of 4, obviously someone trades up, probably taking a quarterback in that spot. The debate is whether or not a wide receiver is more valuable than an offensive lineman in that spot. So let's talk about what the Bengals have on their roster, right? So right now they have Jonah Williams, who they drafted out of Alabama, who's an offensive lineman, and he is a left or right tackle, right? They have Riley Reiff, who they signed to a 1-year deal, who was the Vikings left tackle for a while after the Lions left tackle. He signed a 1-year deal, guys, as a backup. It's a backup contract. It's $7 million. He does not have to start. That does not preclude you from drafting Penei Sewell. The question becomes, obviously, what's more valuable, the left tackle at 5 or the wide receiver? And it's easily the left tackle, and the data backs that up. Most of the elite tackles in the NFL are drafted in the first round, by far. Of course, there's other examples otherwise. I'm sure someone will be like, well, David Bakhtiari is drafted in the 4th round. Okay, fair enough, but 4th round anyways, you're not drafting someone to start right away. You can find a wide receiver in the middle of the first round, at the end of the first round, in the second round. Often the first wide receiver taken in the draft is not the best wide receiver in that class. I think Penei Sewell is far and away better than what you would get from Jamar Chase in that position. I don't understand the fascination still with wide receivers and running backs. They're great to have. You have the other pieces around you. But if you don't have your offensive line, if Burrow's not upright, then there's no chance for you. And Bengals fans will say, well, let's just draft a tackle at the top of the second round. Well, how do you know that one will be available at that time? Like, how do you know that the next best option, maybe Brady Christensen from BYU, the Chiefs might draft him at 31. You don't know who's going to be available. You have the opportunity now to draft an offensive tackle who's elite. You can draft a wide receiver in the second round. There's plenty of options at that time that can do just as good of a job in that offense as Jamar Chase can.
So from the tackles you've looked at in the draft, I've seen this seems to be somewhat of the consensus. You've got Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, Elijah Vera Tucker. These are some of the top offense. Those are the guys who are your top. Like, if you were just to give a top 4 or 5 as far as tackles in this draft, who are you looking at?
So for tackles, it's kind of like a top 4. So basically, it's Penei, Rashawn Slater, Christian Darrisaw, and probably Tavon Jenkins. But Jenkins is mostly a right tackle. Like, you're probably not drafting him to play left. With the Bengals, again, could draft a right tackle in the second round, but Jenkins ain't lasting that far.
And Vera Tucker is a tweener, right? He can play guard or tackle.
I would not play him at left tackle in the NFL. I think he could be like an all-pro level guard. He struggles with a little bit of speed at tackle. We saw last year too when he played against Kayvon Thibodeau at Oregon, and he was a little bit beat up in that game, but still, like, it was a little bit of an issue. So he's more of a hybrid player who I would play at guard, which they can draft. But again, these guys are gone by the time they pick again.
Yeah, and so here's I guess the discussion is, and you kind of alluded to it. How much of a difference is there between the top wide receiver in the NFL draft and the 10th wide receiver draft prospect? And on the flip side, what's the difference between the top tackle available in the draft and the 10th tackle available in the draft? And it feels like there's a significant gap between Penei Sewell and whoever number 10 would be, and not as much of a gap. Not saying that Jamar Chase isn't fantastic, but not as much of a gap from him to the 10th best wide receiver prospect in this draft.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up here. So Robert Mays, who on the Ringer, not the Ringer, used to be the Ringer, the Athletic, who I like. He did an article about this, and he used Pro Football Focus grades just because it's hard to find, kind of a way to do this. But he said of the top 32 qualifying starters from last season, 16 of them for left tackle were drafted in the first round. If we include that in the second round, 23 of the 32 left tackles were taken in the first or second round. I guess it's all tackles maybe. So maybe not just left tackles, all tackles. We're in the first round. Wide receivers, 12 of the 32 are drafted in the first round, and that's guys on their second, sometimes on their second team with Nelson Aguilar. There's no data that shows you that Chase is of more value than Penei Sewell would be if both players end up being as good as we think they could be.
Well, let me ask you this, because you obviously know the offensive line position as well as anybody, and this is why I think that it's more common that you can find people that study the skill positions because they're standing alone, they get all the publicity, but when it comes to the offensive line, there's not enough people who talk about it on a national standpoint, and it's maybe the most important position group in all of football. There's not enough people that know what the hell they're talking about, which is why you pointed out, look, Pro Football Focus, they've got their grades and they grade offensive linemen, and there's not many places outside of Pro Football Focus to do that. So my question to you would be, is Penei Sewell a generational type talent? Is he a once in every 5 year type offensive tackle? Is he, is there where does he stack up to a guy like a Tristan Wirfs, who had a really good year last year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
So here's the thing about Penei, and I've watched him play now. I'm an Oregon grad, and I've known Penei. It's his age. We put it this way: we've never seen a player of his talent level at his age come into the NFL. So he's 20 years old. He will be 20 when he takes his first snap for the Bengals. He doesn't turn 21 till October. So he won the Outland Trophy at Oregon at. Let me do my math right. He started that year at 18 years old. He won the Outland at 19 as a sophomore. So he's the youngest ever to win it, age-wise. The youngest ever to win by physical age and by college age, sophomore. True sophomore, not redshirt, true sophomore. And his ability for growth is so much compared to, let's say, Rashawn Slater, who Rashawn Slater is very good. You're going to draft Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. He is what he is, right? He can pass protect. He can run block. He's got to work a little bit on his hands and finish. But, you're going to get what you get. With Penei, you're going to get so much more because he's going to grow into his body. I mean, look, he posted a picture last week, I think it was his pro day, last week, the week before that, with his shirt off. He's still got a 20-year-old body, right? There's not much muscle definition. It's still kind of like a body you can grow into. And he's 330 pounds running, like a 4.68 shuttle. That potential for growth, and the Bengals have a really good offensive line coach, Frank Pollock as well, who was with the Cowboys during their kind of 4-year run of greatness with Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and all those. He kind of helped develop those guys. So I think there's so much room for growth, and that's what excites me about Penei, is we rarely see a player who is this good, this young, and still growing into his body.
Well, okay, but wasn't this one of the issues that people had with the Austin Jackson pick for the Dolphins? Or are we talking about two different level tackles? Because that was one of the knocks on that pick was, well, listen, he's got really high upside, but he's not close to being ready to play at the NFL level. And when Miami made that pick, and
they're not in the same realm of player.
Okay, so Sewell is light years.
Because I said the same stuff about Austin Jackson too, because because I watched him play often, obviously as a Pac-12 guy. Like they were not even close to the same like player. Austin Jackson was not as physical, not as good with his hands. I mean, Panay just dumps defenders. Like he just dominates guys all the time. Like it's pretty incredible to watch him run block.
And he's a teenager. And he won the Outland as a teenager.
Like there's a clip of it actually people found on my Twitter. I don't know why, but I mean he's 17 years old as a freshman, like taking a kid from Stanford and just like taking him 7 yards back and dumping him as like a 17-year-old freshman. That's man. I think that we don't understand how the kind of the maturing of the body at that age and how much just stronger he will be the older he gets. We hear the phrase "old man strength," right? Like there is something to that idea. I felt much stronger at 27, even though I might not be lifting as much as I did when I was 21. But my overall understanding of my body, how to use my body on the field, how to use my strength and power, he doesn't even get that yet, and he's already this good. Imagine when he learns how to harness his body in the right way, when he learns how to weightlift and train in the best and most efficient way possible. Like there's so much room for, imagine when he becomes an even better pass protector, which he needs to work on. And that to me is why people are so excited for him.